Hello students, welcome to SRIRAM's IAS. Welcome to this series of 1 PYQ a day. In this series, we pick up one question from the previous years of UPSC mains examination and we try to explain how to write it. This maximizes your marks, gives you an insight about how to approach a particular question. And today is the day of Indian polity and we have taken up a question of 2023. Now, this question is of 15 marks, so you can write elaborately in 250 words. Let's dive deep and see what the question is asking and let's try to answer it. Explain the constitutional perspective of gender justice. So this is the keyword here. You have to write about gender justice and how the gender justice is being mentioned in the Indian Constitution. Now the Constitution doesn't define what gender justice is, neither the Constitution sort of gives the explanation of what gender justice is, but rather in the Constitution what you really find are the provisions which allows the society to have egalitarian nature, which allows the government to implement equality within the society, equality in their policies, in their schemes, and the laws which are made by the government and the actions taken by the government. So how this gender justice is reflected in our Constitution? It is reflected through the different provisions which are mentioned under different articles of the Indian Constitution. So you can write a little bit about what gender justice is. You can mention in the introduction, I'm saying, in the introduction you can write about what gender justice is. You can talk about democracy, how democracy promotes gender justice, democracy and justice in itself can have three different angles, justice social, justice economical and justice political. This is something which you can write in the introduction, but body, that forms one of the most important part of the answer structure. So what you are going to write in the body? So reading the question again, explain the constitutional perspective of gender justice with help of relevant constitutional provisions and case laws. So as I have mentioned, there are constitutional provisions, and the second important thing is there are case laws. Case law simply means when something approaches the Supreme Court, a case has been filed in the Supreme Court, the Supreme Court's interpretation is very important in forming the law, in shaping the law, or in shaping the interpretation and the understanding of different constitutional provisions. So you have to write about the case laws and at the same time the constitutional provisions for gender justice. So one by one we can see. See, first thing is preamble. What do you see in preamble? The word equality is mentioned, equality of status and opportunity. So preamble itself talks about equality which needs to be established in the society. At the same time, we have Article 14 of the Indian Constitution which broadly talks about equality before law and equal protection of law. Everybody, it does not matter which gender the person belongs to, which sex the person belongs to, is equal in the eyes of law. So it's a very broader article and this is particularized by Article 15 and 16. Now we will see what is given in Article number 15. If you look at Article number 15, several grounds are given on which there shall not be any kind of discrimination by the state. Religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, these must not be the grounds on which any policy or the action of the government must discriminate the citizens. And it contains a ground, sex. There shall not be any discrimination by the state on the basis of sex. So Article 15 also promotes gender justice. Just like Article 14 and the preamble, Article 16. In the matters of public employment, since state is a model employer, in the matter of public employment, it is very important that gender justice is maintained. There shall be equality between the man and the women. Okay. Now, along with it, if you see Article 21, which is very, very important. Article 21 talks about right to life and personal liberty. When you talk about life and personal liberty, gender justice becomes a very important part. Okay, the dignity of the women, the different interpretation done through the case laws of Article 21, for example, bodily integrity of women, that is very important. Under the marital rape case, which was, sort of interpreted, Article 21 was widely interpreted by the Supreme Court. That is very important. So Article 21 in a way also gives a perspective of gender justice. Article 25, this is something which you can write. Article 25 is about religious freedom rather, or we can say freedom of conscience. So freedom of conscience is given to both man and women and anybody of a different gender. Okay. So again here there is no discrimination, and then there are several provisions given in the directive principles of state policy. Equal pay for equal work. There should not be any kind of activity which hurts the dignity of the women. Along with directive principle of state policy, you will also find mention of gender justice's fundamental duties, that nothing must be done which indignifies a women. Equal pay for equal work. Opportunities must be created for women. When it comes to opportunities, special provisions can also be made for women under Article 15 and 16. Along with it, if you see Article 243, for panchayats and for municipalities, there is a provision of 1/3 of the seats which needs to be reserved for women. So this is the whole constitutional perspective, different provisions of the Indian Constitution which promotes gender justice. This is something which you can write. Enough for you to write. Constitution provides a whole plethora of provisions which provides gender justice. Now coming to the case laws. Case laws are something which are, the cases which have been filed in front of the court, can be High Court or the Supreme Court, and the judgment of the court has come. Now through those judgment, through the orders of the court is trying to interpret the constitution or the provisions of the sections of any other law in such a way that it promotes the gender justice. So different case laws are there. For example, सबसे पहले देखें तो विशाखा guidelines. Now this was 1997 when Vishakha guidelines came, which sort of protected the women from harassment at the workplace. Now recently the government has also brought a law, but for a very long time it was the Vishakha guideline which were protecting the women at the workplace. Along with it, you have the Joseph Shine case of 2018. In this Joseph Shine case, a decriminalization was done of adultery. Man and women were, thought to be equals, were given equal status, and adultery in one or the other way was decriminalized. So it is about restoring the dignity of a woman all over again. That was done in the Joseph Shine case of 2018. Then you have the marital rape case. In this marital rape case also, women were allowed to go for abortion up to 24 weeks of pregnancy. So the discrimination which was done to the unmarried women, the inequality which was faced by the unmarried women versus the married women, that was taken out of context by the marital rape case. Then you have the triple talaq case. Now triple talaq case was against the dignity of a woman, where when a man, the husband says talaq 3 times and he is relieved of all kind of responsibility of the women. Now this is squarely against the equality in the society or against the dignity of the women. That triple talaq, talaq-e-biddat, was declared as unconstitutional by the Supreme Court. That was in 2017. The Parliament has also made a law on this. Okay. Then you have another case called the Anuj Garg case. Anuj Garg versus Hotel Association case. So there was a law which does not allow women to work at places where liquor is served. That particular law was annulled. That was taken out of the context in the Anuj Garg versus Hotel Association case. So these are few case laws which you can mention in your answer to make it more relevant. So when it comes to gender justice, you can talk about so many different provisions of the constitution and the case laws which are the product of judiciary and the judicial wisdom in the country. And this is how you can beautify your answer. This is how, by providing an intellectual or a more solid point of view to the person who is evaluating your copy, you can get maximum marks in a particular answer. So this is something which needs to be seen. Now, introduction and body, now there comes a conclusion also. What do you write in the conclusion? Conclusion, I always say, have to be much broader. You must show a broader picture of whatever has been asked. Now, if it is gender justice, you can link it with the socio-economic, political condition of the country. You can also link it with, you know, the economics, such as making India the third largest economy of the world or the 5 trillion economy. For all these things, only man cannot do this. Women have to participate, you know, and women have to be educated and they have to be healthy. They have to have more respect and dignity, the things which they deserve. Okay, so all those are the things which you can write, that in the development of a nation, the contribution of man and women, both along with the other genders, LGBTQ, everybody's contribution is required. And that is what is gender justice, which is very much reflected in the provisions of the Indian Constitution and in the different case laws also. So this is something which you can write in your answer to maximize your marks, to boost your marks. So thank you very much for joining me in this video. Have a nice day and Jai Hind.